Now, for those of you who may not know what death row is, also known as condemned row, let me explain. In some states and countries around the world, they still have the death sentence in place, which means the judge allows the jury the option of a death penalty, where the convicted criminal will be executed, or an option of life in prison. Death row is the place in prison that houses inmates awaiting their execution date. Now, many places no longer have the death sentence in place, but many places still do. As of 2020, there is a total of 53 countries that still have the death penalty in effect, which can be death by hanging, shooting, lethal injection, beheading, or electrocution. There is also 25 states in the United States that still implement the death sentence to this day. Now, one thing that you may not know is that in many places, a day or two before the execution of the inmate is granted a last meal. Now, there's places where they just give you the usual prison food, but in many places, you're granted pretty much whatever you desire, of course, with some restrictions. Welcome to TylerMedeirosTV. For those of you that are new, make sure you subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss it when I upload. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the strangest last meal requests on death row. The first person we're going to be getting into is a man named David Leon Woods, born August 7th, 1964 in Indiana. It was on the 7th of April in 1984, Woods would commit a murder which ultimately led to Woods being sentenced to death. On the day of April 7th, 1984, Woods and a couple of his friends entered his neighbor's house with the intent to rob it. Woods and one of his friends approached the house and rang the doorbell. The homeowner answered the door, and at that point, Woods jumped into the house, stabbing the man multiple times before stealing money from his wallet. Woods then searched the house and stole the TV, which he would sell later that night. Woods would then get rid of the murder weapon in a creek and would also wash his clothes. The next morning, officials arrived to the house due to a call of a man being reported of needing help. When the police arrived on the scene, Woods was sitting on the porch of the neighbor's house. Woods told police he had gone to use the phone at the house, and at that point, he had come across the body. While Woods was being questioned, his mother arrived. She would go on to tell police that she suspected Woods may be the one who committed the murder, and gave officials permission to search her premises. Upon searching the house of Woods, officials found a stained towel and a knife casing. After their findings, Woods was brought to the station where he would undergo a polygraph test. Before officials were even able to interrogate Woods while on the polygraph, Woods would break down and confess to the murder. On May 4th of 2007, David Woods would be executed by lethal injection for the murder of his neighbor. But before Woods would be executed, he was granted a last meal, where he would request a whole birthday cake and pizza, which he would share with his family. The second person we're going to be getting into is a man named John Spankling, born March 29th, 1949 in Lamars, Iowa. John was a drifter that would travel place to place. In 1973, while in Florida, John would escape a conservation camp and end up shooting a small-time criminal. The man was a friend of John's, and they were actually sharing a hotel room at the time. John stated that he shot the man in self-defense because the man stole his money, sexually assaulted him, and made him play Russian roulette. Evidence and witness testimony told a different story though. It said that John left the hotel and later returned with a gun. Upon entering back into the room, John shot his friend in the back. John would go on to turn down a plea bargain for second-degree murder, which would have resulted in him receiving a life sentence. He would go on to later be convicted of first-degree murder, which would end up in the result of John being sentenced to death. John's execution date would be set to May 25th, 1979, where he would be executed by electric chair. Before John's execution, he was granted a last meal, or should I say a last drink. John would request 2 shots of Jack Daniels before his execution. Now this isn't exactly where the story ends. Rumors had begun to travel around that John had been dead before his actual execution, due to the way he was being treated in the prison. John's mother requested his body be exhumed after he was buried, to perform an autopsy. After investigating the body, rumors were put to rest, confirming that John had in fact been executed by the electric chair, and there had been no foul play. The last person we're going to be looking at is a man named Arthur Gary Bishop, born September 29th, 1952 in Utah. Bishop was the oldest of the kids and had 5 brothers. He was an honor student and would even serve as a missionary in the Philippines at the age of 19. In 1978, Bishop would be arrested for embezzlement. He would then skip his parole and take off to Salt Lake City, where he lived under an alias name, Roger Downs. He would even end up joining the Big Brother program under the alias. On October 14th, 1979, Bishop committed his first murder. He would go on to kill his second victim in November of 1980. By October 20th, 1981, he would kill once again. At this point, there was a $20,000 reward offered for the capture of the killer. Officials put in place one of the biggest manhunts in Salt Lake County history. In 1983, Bishop would strike again on June 22nd. By July 14, Bishop would kill another victim. Officials realized that Bishop, who went by the alias Roger Downs, lived near 4 of the victims. After bringing him into the station, officials were able to uncover his real name. It was at that point, Bishop would begin to confess to all 5 of the murders. The very next day, Bishop would lead authorities to the 5 burial spots. Bishop would be sentenced to death by lethal injection on June 10th, 1988. Before he was executed, Bishop was granted a last meal, which he would decline and request to be able to read from the Book of Mormon. Now I want to know down below in the comments, if you were in this situation, would you even be able to have a last meal? And if you were, what would your choice be? But I'm going to go ahead and close out today's video here. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, give it a nice big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. I want to thank you guys so much for all the love and support that you guys continuously give me. It means the world to me, and I will see you guys in my next video. Peace.